I'm Paul Nelson. I'm the founding director of the Cascadia Poetics Lab. CascadiaPoeticsLab.org is the website. We were founded over 30 years ago in Auburn, Washington, originally to produce and syndicate public affairs radio programming. And at our height, we had a weekly show of interviews that aired on 18 radio stations, mostly in the Northwest. And in 2009, 2 years after the Poetry Postcard Fest started, we became poetry centric, moved to Seattle, and we started focusing specifically on poetry. And in September 2021, we became the Cascadia Poetics Lab to emphasize our commitment to place and the importance we believe in connecting to place. There's a great essay that I just put on the website called Bioregions by Peter Berg. If you go to the Cascadia Poetics Lab.org website and go to the About page, the word bioregionalism is highlighted, and you can see it from there. You can click on that, and I just scanned it today and put that on there. And I want to give it to workshop participants in the fall as something they should read because it ties a lot of things together. It came out in 1983, and it's incredibly prophetic. We have the Poetry Postcard Fest, which is why you're here. We have our Cascadian Prophets podcast, which we try and do once a month. We have the Cascadia Poetry Festival happening October 31st through November 3rd in Seattle. And Watershed Press, which put out Cascadian Zen. Cascadian Zen Volume 2 is coming out this fall. And it should be a pretty potent festival. For those of you who attended, you have a sense of that. If you're not speaking, it's probably a good idea to mute yourself so that we don't hear you telling your spouse to get out, you're on a call or whatever comes up. But with that said, I'd like to introduce the members of the Poetry Postcard Fest committee. There's Ina Roy Faderman and Margaret Lee and Judy Kleinberg and Zach Charles and Sally Hedges Blanquez. Sally, there you are, waving. And they're helping in part with these two Poetry Postcard Fest events or Poetry Postcard events in Seattle on July 14. One of them is at the Olympic Sculpture Park, and three veteran postcard poets, Tim Mateer and Abaya Thomas and Colette Dutton, will be leading workshops on how to make collage postcards, and their postcards are brilliant. If any of you have been on their lists, you know how beautiful they are. That's July 14 from 11 to 3 at the Olympic Sculpture Park. And then we come here to the Mapes Creek watershed near my house. This is my view, by the way, so you get a sense of what we're going to be looking at on July 14, 4:30 to 6 or so. Postcards from Mapes Creek, and we'll be talking about the creek, and people will be reading their postcard poems, and should be a fun time. The weather should be good. So those events are available for your perusal at CascadiaPoeticsLab.org. With that said, I'd like to turn it over to Ina Roy Faderman, who's the chair of the Postcard Fest Committee. And Ina, take it away.
Hey, welcome everybody. It's so nice to see faces that I recognize and new faces that I don't. I'm the chair of the Postcard Festival Committee, which just basically means that I occasionally have stuff to say, not about this in general. I've been involved with the Postcard Fest for, Paul, is it 10 years, 12 years? I don't even know. It's so long that I have stopped counting. This is what I look forward to every summer. For people who haven't done this before, basically what we do is we send a poem a day to the other people on our list. And if people have questions who haven't done this before about how this works, we're all the people on the committee are happy to talk about the details of how to make that happen when you receive your list. A couple of things that are different for people who've been part of the fest before. This year, we're going to have, I guess you call them team captains for each poetry group, so that if you've got questions, you can go to your captain and say, I don't get this, or something isn't working for me, or I haven't received any postcards yet, and we will help you so that you're not trying to all converge on one person. So you get personal, help with whatever you need. Um, let's see, I'm doing a lot of umming. Sorry, I'm recovering from COVID. I'm not positive anymore, but I have serious brain fog, which is partly why I sound so incredibly fluffy. I haven't had it before, and wow, the brain is like all the fun of drinking vodka without actually drinking vodka. Let's see that. So that's one thing you should know. The other is that we all take this as a joint group effort. So there's some trust involved for people who this is new for. We we keep addresses to ourselves. We don't share other people's poems without their permission. And we also try to make sure that we take the commitment to other people receiving our poems seriously. It matters. I know it matters for me. I'm one of those people with reverse seasonal affective disorder, meaning I'm miserable during the summer, like really and truly. I don't like to go out except at night. And the Postcard Fest at this point is what keeps me sane through the summer months. So I really appreciate getting poems. On the other hand, we get it. Everybody gets it. Crisis happens, right? Kids break their legs. Parents need extra help because something's going on with their health. You have to move. If that happens, not to worry. You let your group know I might be late and you catch up when you can.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that if you are on Facebook, there is a very active and supportive Facebook group for the Poetry Fest, and people have amazing ideas. It's really supportive, it's inspiring, and plus, it's a way to sort of get this face-to-face contact in a program that we're normally, except for these occasions.
You were interrupted there for a sec.
That's okay. I think I said what I needed to say. I was just going to recommend, if you're on Facebook, join the group.
Fantastic. That's really good advice. And in fact, I didn't include that in the email that I sent the committee just moments before the meeting, and I meant to do that. And there's the link from Veronica. That's fantastic.
Judy,
How?
can you pass it to someone else?
Yeah.
Oh, that's Margaret waving her hand. Okay, Margaret, go for it.
Yeah, I'll go. Just a quick thought that those of us that have done the fest even one or two times um, love to talk about how marvelous it is, how much we love it, how meaningful it is to us, all of that. And we go on and on and on about it because all that is true. But I think sometimes we do that so much that newcomers to the fest think, oh my gosh, what if I do it wrong? What if I can't write a poem today? What if my postcard isn't cool enough? And it's like, no, 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 no. What works about the fest is that you're part of it, period. If you put words on a postcard and mail it to somebody on your list, 100%, A+, yes, you got it. That's it. That's the only thing you have to do. No one's standing behind you with the clipboard. No one's judging you. And whoever gets that card is going to be thrilled to death. Trust me, they are. Why? Because they can sense your presence in that physical object. They know you're there. They know you thought of them. Those words are yours. Your personality comes through. That is all it takes. And as much as you want to jazz it up, you go for it. But is that required? Absolutely not. The only thing that matters is that you're here, you're part of it. Just throw yourself in and have a ball and do what you can. And that's great. We love you.
Oh man, that is the perfect thing. And I want to add to what Margaret said. A lot of people make these beautiful postcards and I keep them hung up on my wall because they're such wonderful artwork. But I am not an artist. I mean, I draw like a 5-year-old. You don't have to make your postcards. You don't have to send beautiful works of art. You can buy postcards with someone else's beautiful art. All that matters is that you're connecting with another person on the other end. And I think that's Margaret's point. There's a connection, and that's what we're after. Hey, Sally, how about you?
Sure. I was just going to say one thing that I think I remember people saying on the Facebook page last year is, I've got this postcard. I don't know who wrote it. I think it's, it's what a wonderful poem. I personally want to write one right back to them right this minute or whatever, just to be sure that you put your name on your card. I mean, I think that I sometimes have been able to do a little sleuthing from postmark, but that doesn't always work, especially if you're traveling and mailing them from the road. So that's a good thing. I was also going to say that I was just looking through some of mine that I have saved over the years, and I love the stamps on the cards. And one year I tried to make my stamps go along with whatever the theme of the poem was, and I happened to have just a huge collection of postcard stamp not just postcard stamps that I'd gotten over the years from family, from thrift store, from whatever. And it was always fun just to see what I could put together that way on the card. And I guess another thing is that I was surprised at just rereading a card, and something that stood out to me today that didn't when I initially received the card. So I guess that's just to say that your card will continue to give. And I was just reading, one of the poems was about a moth, and the woman had taken the photo herself, and she attached the photo to an old postcard, so it was a heavier weight. So there's all sorts of ways of putting yourself into it, from your own photographs to your collages to just I was just going to say, I found some just very bizarre old record albums. The records were trash, but cutting up a record album, the weight of the paper is amazing. And I love this kind of like nice brown tone. That to me is like, yay. I guess one more thing is just having fun with it, playing with it. And back to the woman and her moth, I walked out the door and I looked up, and there was a moth that was huge. Wasn't the same type of moth as she had photographed, but I thought this morning I wouldn't have thought anything of that, but I just like paid a little bit more attention because of rereading that person's poem. So again, we give gifts, they continue to resonate in different ways with people. All right, welcome on board, everyone.
Yeah, so the first thing I want to say, like Sally said, is it's fun. It's fun. You put a piece of yourself on this card, you send it out, you start to develop these connections, this community that's really wonderful, and you start to receive back the moment you send those seeds of yourself out. And it's a really beautiful experience. And I'd like to, if it's okay, Paul, share my screen, show my project from last year.
Sure.
So here we go.
There we go. Postcard Fest wrap up.
All right. Okay, excellent. So there's the wrap up. I'll send the link to this also in the chat so everybody can take a click and have a peek through at their leisure. And one of the things I did last year was I found this old Kenyon review. You can see one of the pages from that there, and I cut lines out and I wrote from the lines. So the poetry can come from anything, like Sally was talking about her stamps. Your poetry can come from there. Your poetry can come from the postcard. Mine last year came from these lines I cut out of the Kenyon review in conjunction with the tide. I live by Alki Beach in West Seattle, and I went out there at the same time every morning and wrote my postcard poems from there. I had this fun little, I just like the way it cut across this image, this guy's eye, and revealed this line here as if she had forgotten to say, almost perfectly in there. And what I ended up with was these prints. Can everybody see that?
Yep.
All right, what I ended up with doing was these prints of Alki Beach and the Olympic Mountains across the way, and I put these lines to match the height of the tide. So I used it as a practice of getting to know the place I was in, You could use it as a practice to get to know the place you're sending it to a little bit. You can look up the address and learn a little bit about the history of that place. And what I made was this title chart. So you can see the lines go down and come right back on up the page. So there's that. Stop sharing my screen now. And it's just it's a wonderful opportunity. Paul calls this a peace project. And I really think it's that. It's that development of connection, attention to beauty, a mindfulness of each other and ourselves and our surroundings. And it's an opportunity to get into that mindful part of your brain. And I'll end by saying another thing, echoing another thing Paul often says, is that it's a season. This is my third Postcard Fest, and it's getting to that point now where I've done it enough that I'm excited for the postcard season, not just for summer, which is my favorite season anyway, but also the postcard season, to get into that part of the year where we're sending cards out and receiving cards, developing that connection that way. And it's a lovely, beautiful experience.
Thanks, Zach. I'm glad you're a postcard poet. I guess some basic information. So I'm looking at the chat and I see one of the questions was, when does the fest officially start? And that is the 4th of July. So what we usually did was send out draft lists, and then people didn't check their email or for a few days, and then we had version 4, version 5, and what have you. Not going to do that this year. We're going to verify addresses before we send the lists out. So you'll have an opportunity to change. Some people use a pen name. Some people have a summer address. And so between now and the 4th of July is when, actually probably about the 3rd of July is when to do that. And since we have different captains for the lists, it's not just one guy trying to keep track of all this, but individual captains taking care of, in my case, I think 4 different lists. So as many as 4 different lists, but that's a lot better than 17 or whatever the max. Well, I think it was 17 that we've had in the past as the record. And by
Yeah.
the way, just to give you a sense, we're registering people for group 15 right now. So there's still some time to try and match or exceed that record. And then, and we're not going to cut it off right on the 4th of July. There might be a list that needs a few more people. So we'll just keep it open until there's a natural cutoff date, either on the 4th of July or shortly after that. I also want to say that Zach did a great write-up, and that used to be my practice every year, was to sort of look back at the fest and, you know, give people background on different poems and put them online. And then a few years ago, through the online workshops that we've been doing since the pandemic, the ones I've been facilitating are known as Life as Rehearsal for the Poem and Poetics as Cosmology. We started doing this thing where it was called a day song, and you would take a day shortly after the fest and just kick the spouse out of the house, have someone else take care of your dog, and use it as a writing ritual to write as much of a poem as you can in one day. I've written up several different prompts or whatever, exercise, you know, a 1-page or 5-page thing about the exercise. And I have a new one, and I'll drop that in the chat. But it comes after experiments done by people like Bernadette Mayer. Her Midwinter Day, written on winter solstice, 1978, is an example of it. And also Pierre Joris, who wrote a poem called Canto Diurno. So day song from that. In fact, I've published a couple of them. A couple is chapbooks, and my most recent book is published by Carbonation Press out of Spokane. I have it right over here. Day Song Miracle, past 62. And Greg Bem is a postcard poet. And I think he's going to be reading at our Postcards from Mapes Creek event on July 14. That's something that you might want to do. After writing at least 31 postcard poems that, you know, give you about that much room, here's a chance to exercise those long distance poetry muscles. And it's an extraordinary experience. So and it also, requires spontaneity, because if you are working out of your editor's mind, you never get through the day. So you really have to let it rip. And as Allen Ginsberg said, paraphrased, you can write anything you want as long as you don't show anybody. I think that's the pressure. Oh, what are people going to think when I write this? Don't worry about that. Write for yourself, write for the muse, be in service to the muse on that particular day. And this year we're doing it on September 1. It's a Sunday, so it's perfect. So when I get a moment, I'll drop it in the chat. And before I forget, I'd really like to bring Lou Cabine back in here. Lou is a Seattle artist, retired prof from the UW, and has constructed this opportunity to write postcards in the field or draw postcards in the field. Lou, do you want to talk about Mapes Creek Radiance?
Oh, sure. Thanks. Thanks, Paul, and hello, everyone. I am brand new to the Postcard project, but I do have a long-standing interest in making art rooted in place. I am a visual artist, not a writer. And basically, Paul and I have combined our shared interests and insights into responding creatively to place, and have an invitation out. I'm just double checking numbers because I do have a degree in the humanities and I don't keep numbers. I have no excuse of brain fog. This is just the way I am. So the Mapes Creek Radiance is an invitation to creatives to join Paul and I at Mapes Creek in Rainier Beach, Seattle, in the mornings, 8 to 11 on August 10th through the 14th. So that's 5 days, the month after the Postcard Festival, August 10th to the 14th, from 8 in the morning until 11, to gather at the creek with our own materials that we use for our creative endeavors, and to just commit to be present with the creek and each other, with each of us pursuing our own work and the inspiration that arises from that proximity. So that interest in my personal interest is in softening the false dichotomy of urban natural world, the false dichotomy of nature culture, right? Because here we all are, and seeing what can arise creatively from sitting literally in one of the most ethnically diverse neighborhoods in the country, Rainier Beach, by the side of a newly restored, beautiful, tiny, underrepresented, underappreciated waterway. And so we're just sending out an invitation for people to join us. We're calling it a residency in quotes because there's no housing. This is obviously designed for folks in the Seattle area to come and join us. And I'm happy to take questions, or I'm kind of awkward at the chat, but perhaps we could put my contact information in the chat. I'll try to figure out how to do that.
You can figure it out, Lou. This is going to be exciting. Thank you. You'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah. I also want to just share screen for a moment and show you our graphics person, Roberta. By the way, Lou, in August, it'll be prime time for Postcard Fest. So August 10th through the 14th, I plan on responding to folks on my list, or maybe by that time sending bonus cards. I don't know. But some of the postcards of Mapes Creek that Roberta created are here. And I gave her some of the pictures. And so that's our little creek here in Rainier Beach that goes through Kubota Garden. There's Tim's I asked him, I asked him for a headshot, and that's what he gave me. And there's Abaya, and there's Colette, and then there's the old school Mapes Creek postcard done by Roberta, and those are available for those who want one. So yeah, so that'll be prime time for postcards, August. It used to be the August Poetry Postcard Fest, and one poem a day every day in August. And some people choose to do it that way, but others like to have more time. So when we first figured out how many days, you sign up on the 4th of July, you get a list on the 5th, and on the 6th you started writing, and that gave you 56 days to write your 31 poems. So we cleverly called the anthology that we co-edited, Ina, Judy, and I, 56 Days of August. I have them near me. I saw Jason Worth have a library cart in his house, and I thought, what a great idea. So I actually have a library cart, and I pushed it out of the way to do yoga. Anyway, here's the book, 56 Days of August, and that's available, I guess, through Amazon and other places. But that's the deal. 50, if you're going to make one day of the year 56 days long, it might as well be August. Sorry, Ina, that's the way I feel about it. I like the summer too. Anyway, so we probably put it out for questions. Maybe if you have a question, go to reaction and click on raise hand, and you could bring people on if folks have questions. I know there are newcomers, people who've never done the fest before, so maybe they are wondering just what the hell they got themselves into.
Yep, I'm flipping back and forth between screens, so put up your hand or use the raised hand icon.
There's Logan.
Okay, Logan, go for it.
Hey, everyone. Nice to, well, I was gonna say meet you all, but it's a lot of faces. I haven't met most of you. This is my first year, and I'm really excited to join. I've talked to Paul a little bit. I'm sorry, my cat's making a lot of noise, if you can hear that. But I was wondering if anyone has any advice, guidance, wisdom on the poems themselves. Not to ask how to write a poem, but is there any kind of guidelines or themes that traditionally, we really want to adhere to as part of this, or is it really just being generative with a sense of place and sharing that? Is that really all there is to it?
Anyone else want to take that? Because otherwise I can jump in.
Why don't you jump in and then I'll share screen.
I'm jumping in. Basically, we want your words. We want to hear your words, and whatever form that takes, that works. That's my short version.
And I'm gonna go to share screen to go to the Poetry Postcard Fest page. There's a great page called How It Works. There's a whole drop down with all kinds of different things, but I'll go to How It Works. And it was Lana Ayers who helped construct the language. I gave her some ideas and she put it together about how it works. And then this is the yada yada. And the idea is here, it says right here, well, it's linked to the epistle form as you are writing to someone. There's a great essay by Sam Hamill about how the epistle form is the most intimate of all poetry forms. It's a beautiful essay, and it's really perfect for the Postcard Fest. And I can dig that up, Sam Hamill on epistle form. But it says here, the idea is to practice spontaneity. That is, write directly on the card in one take. If that's hard at the start of the fest to write spontaneously directly onto the card, it gets better as the month goes on. You're writing to one person, usually a stranger, so act accordingly. Would you tell a stranger about your sex life? Probably not, but I guess not. Some people have to be reminded of that. But the idea is that you would write something about what's going on with you, right? I love that Jimmy Buffett line, that twist on the old postcards where he said, "The weather is here. I wish you were beautiful." But yeah, something of the here and now is helpful. And, quite often there are news events that happen. I remember the Minneapolis Bridge collapsing during one Postcard Fest. I remember Max Roach dying during one of the Postcard Fests, the great jazz drummer. I remember Bobby Hutcherson and others dying during that. So I wrote elegies. I remember the year we extended the Postcard Fest during COVID, John Prine died. I think it was something in May. We started the fest in March that year, so people would have something to do. So I have a beautiful John Prine elegy, and I fished online for a suitable image, and I used that. So those are some of the things, Logan, that I would recommend. And you probably find something like what Zach did, some kind of system. T Clear a few years ago had the phases of the moon, a particular phase of the moon on that day with every card that she wrote. So that was a brilliant thing. And the interesting thing is that you'll remember this. You probably won't remember what years you did it. You'll have to look back at your records, but you'll remember having done that and really having explored and using the form, using the practice to explore something like Zach Charles did with the tides at Alki. So Beth has raised her hand.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm new. I'm very excited. So what I'm hearing is I write a spontaneous poem, and then I copy the spontaneous poem to keep it for myself so that I will have a record of what I've written. The person to whom I send the poem may or may not keep it. If that person chooses to keep it, they want to publish it, or it generates an idea, they need to receive my permission. And they get that because you guys, because I have a captain who knows my full contact information. Is that right?
Well, I mean, when you send someone a postcard poem, it's theirs to keep. I mean,
Okay.
it's out of your hands. And so scanning it or taking a picture of it or transcribing it is your right because you're still the author of it. So you own it. And so if anyone wants to publish it, they can't publish your poem without your permission. If someone says, I loved your poem, I want to put it on my blog, is that okay? They have to come to you to do it. And they wouldn't have your email address. We don't provide those. But they might write you a card saying, hey,
Yeah.
can I publish it that way?
Oh,
and-
okay. That's a good question then. So the same people are on so I'm on a list with
Yes.
30 other people who
Yes.
also have my name.
Yeah,
Yes.
31 people. There are 32 on each list. So you're with 31 other people. I think the images themselves are fair game because they are in the mail. And, it's quite often if it's a store-bought card, then that's available anyway in public. So I think the images are fair game. And each year, I think every year I publish a photo of all the cards I've received and the images, not the actual poems. And I get a bounty. I'm very blessed, and I have them right here at my feet. I could show you some of the more beautiful ones. But publishing someone's poem without their permission is something that we would prefer you not do. And so that's the only thing. But they're your poems, you own them, so you can publish them. We recommend, though, give it a little time after the fest because people were publishing their poems online before folks even got them. And it's really shitty to see a poem, that's to you that you see on somebody posted on Facebook before it actually landed in your mailbox. So take a good month after and a little longer for participants who do not live in the United States. And there are, I think, at least 8 different countries represented in this year's fest.
Right. Margaret?
Yes, if I could just add for Beth, maybe this is already clear, but just in case it isn't. So that list that you get, Beth, will have 32 names and addresses. So your name is one, and then you have 31 others. So those are all the people that you write to. But all 32 of those people all have that list. So everyone knows how to contact everyone on that list by mail, not in any other way. But I will say I have contacted other people on my list via mail, another card, or sometimes a letter, depending on what it is that we're discussing, and have built up a correspondence with that person over time and still keep in touch with them. So, people can choose to share contact information if they want to, but minimally, everyone on that list has everyone's mailing information for that whole group, for each person that's on the list, if that helps.
It
I-
does,
I
it
sh-
really gives a sense of community then. Thanks.
I also should probably add that, of course, that should stay within your group. Please don't share addresses with people outside of your group. That's obvious. I just feel like I have to say it because it's a thing that I should be, it helps keep everybody feeling comfortable.
It's been done before where someone said, okay, I'll send them all a postcard about my new book. And, you know, spamming the list is not what it's about. It's about sending them a poem. And, you know, you can send them a card saying, hey, do you mind if I send you this? Or if you find them on the Facebook group, that's another way. But, you know, use the list for its purpose. And that's to send someone a poem. I see Tracy has their hand up. Tracy.
Yes, thank you, Paul. And you kind of already answered this question, but this happened to me a couple of times that I would post about a poem that I'd sent maybe a little too soon. So maybe it's a good idea to wait until after everything's done before you share any of your postcards or your poems that you wrote during the month.
Yeah, I think it's, you know, the beauty, one of the beautiful things about the fest is that you go to the mailbox on most days and it's what for me, it's credit card offers, Costco, you know, the symphony sending me their catalog and CL Arts and lectures and stuff like that. And that's all well and good. But then there will be a postcard or a couple of postcards. You know, it starts out kind of slow and then people get the hang of it. And I always love to tell, we had one of these Zoom open houses one time, or somehow I found out, I don't know where it was exactly, that the mailman came and said, hey, this one's pretty good.
Yep, that would be my mailman.
Is that right?
Yep, every year I get them in little clumps because I think they hang on to them for a few days while everybody at the post office reads them and then they send them over. So I've given up trying to worry about it. They always show up eventually.
There you go. Some people do have relationships with their local post office. Some people are very like, oh, you've got please hand cancel my cards to make sure they don't get ruffled or anything. So yeah, I mean, they're postcards, they come in the mail, and so others can see them. And I don't know, Ina, if you have that feeling, but when you've created a card, I like sometimes don't mail it for a couple of days. I have separation anxiety. I'm like, oh man, I want to hang on to this for a little while, and then eventually it goes out.
Yeah.
And I don't make a difference between letter stamps and postcard stamps. So, you know, you may get a Ruth Bader Ginsburg stamp from me, or a Jimi Hendrix stamp, or
Ooh,
Ruth Asawa, or any the Haida Raven stamps were beautiful. I've got a whole sheet of those still left. So
yeah.
I've become kind of a stamp nerd as well. And I don't mind giving the USPS a little extra money for putting a letter stamp on something that only takes a postcard. However, I bought construction paper, 8.5 by 11, and a cheap paper cutter, one of those that you can just zip right across. And so I've sent out a couple of those postcards where I cut that up and I write on one side, put the address on the bottom, and put the stamp near the bottom, and then the other side is completely free for art. And I'm also a stamp nerd, ink stamps, so and stickers. So I'll try and bring one of those up while the next person asks their questions, if there are any questions.
Mary Beth? Looks like your hand's up. Can you demute yourself? There you go.
Know why I don't see the thing to put my hand up. I was going to say, I do like getting any kind of mail, as long as it's not junk mail. So don't worry about what the card looks like. I'll also say, please put your name on the card because I want to know that it's from you. I'll also say, do take a photo of your card front and back. I scan mine. But it's a great record, and it's something that you're writing. Today may not be the best version of that poem you're writing, but you may go back a few days later or a month later and say, you know, that's a great start. I'm gonna keep editing. I'm gonna keep writing based on that. Or I might find a way to combine some of the poems that you've written during the month. But if you at least keep a photo or a scan of them, you'll have all of that that you can use in the future. That's it.
If I can interject quick before we get to Siggy, I also want to say on the point of the names, if you send the postcard and it's not in an envelope, you just send it like a postcard. Be careful about the very top of the postcard and the very bottom of the postcard, because the USPS puts their marks there, which sometimes obscures names or last lines or such. So you want to really keep it tight in there.
Did you have a question?
I had a couple of thoughts. One, some of my favorite postcards came, and one was cut out of a box of cereal, the front of it. That just got my attention, and it really is. I can't remember the poem, but by God, I can remember that was a good day. And some people have used corrugated box. They, I don't know how they cut it up, but this last year, somehow, I don't know, my list got strange because I know I sent out one to everybody, but I kept finding postcards that I had written and addressed but not sent out. But I know I sent out 31. So anyway, I decided to send them when I'm finding. My family has me downsizing. What's it called? Death cleaning. My granddaughter doesn't want to come in and find all my books and all my photographs. And so I found a church envelope from 2017 the other day, tucked in a book. Anyway, it's nice to just get them. And the people who haven't been on here, the last few years have been a little tough. People have sent me the nicest cards when they found out something has happened, or the just to say hello to, and it's just nice to get something, whether it's on a store-bought. Oh, index cards work also, I found out. I get some on index cards. But those who worry about being fancy, I love whatever comes. And Paul, you made me into a stamp nerd also. That's one thing they're going to find is this drawer full of stamps. It's the right size. But my granddaughter has been telling me about my collections. She hasn't found that one yet. She's going to find stamps up to their eyeballs because I love them. So it's just fun, Paul. You know me. I'm old and confused, but I love this.
Siggy, we're grateful that you're a postcard poet. Thank you for your comments. Thanks, Mary Beth. It's nice to hear your voice again and see you in the Zoom room. And I did pull up this what you call half a construction paper image.
Oh,
So that's one. That's one. Can you see two of them, or are you only seeing one? The skull one, yeah. So there's the skull one, right? Is that one the one you see with a feather?
Yeah, the skull one, trumpets,
Yeah.
and
Yeah, and then there's the other one is this one here. Feathers.
yeah.
Yeah.
love that.
And then and so you can see stamps. I love the rabbit stamp. I did go to Harrison Hot Springs, so I'm hoping that glue will stay as it goes through the machines. And you can see some of the other stamps I had. And then the last one, I've been trading cards with Arthur Tooley, who's a longtime postcarder, and I hope he's going to join again this year. And so this is the last one that I sent. I have an art stamp, and of course his name is Arthur, so it sort of serves a double purpose there. Anyway, and then the sticker, the butterfly thing is a sticker, so I've kind of got that on. And of course I have a canceled stamp, ink stamp of George Washington there. So that's how I've been doing it. And the thing about one of the things about the Postcard Fest is that I started getting cards that people handmade. And I'm like, oh my God, that looks like fun. I got to start doing that. And I don't consider myself a graphic artist at all. But my wife says they're getting better. And, it takes me out of my language head. It's very, I mean, the poetry is supposed to be right brain, but the collaging is definitely right brain. So I got a system now and they look pretty cool. And I think Bhakti's a good judge. She makes beautiful collages and she's a postcard poet too. And so you may see her on your list, Bhakti Marie Watts, with a familiar address. So the fest starts on the 4th of July. You'll be getting your lists. Ina, if anyone has a change, I know there was one in the chat that said, I have an address change. I'd like to take as many of those as possible.
Are
to
we
get
sending out mail from MailChimp to ask people to confirm?
I don't think we're going to do it from MailChimp. I think we're
Okay.
going to do it from our individual addresses.
Right.
Because MailChimp, people can go on and update their preferences and their address and what have you, but we're not informed about that. So it's a whole nother can of worms. So I think we just, as captains, just ask for people to validate their addresses and then check them off as we get them. And I think that's going to be starting very soon. I'll be traveling to British Columbia starting on Wednesday to attend the memorial of Barry McKinnon. And that's on the 22nd, which I believe is the solstice this year. So I'll be at his memorial, but I'll still be checking emails and I'll be sending out emails to those folks. I won't be sending lists. I'll just be BCCing all the folks that I'm responsible for and asking them if there's any address changes. And sometimes there are name changes. And one year, a person signed up through their PayPal account with their dead name and did not want to see that name used. So communication is important, and the best we can do is send you an email and hope that you respond, or in some cases, a phone call. And I've done that a couple of times this year. And with so many spam calls that we all get, it's like, I'm happy to leave a message and have you call me back. But the time is going to be of the essence. And we're not sending out draft lists this year because people don't see that they're drafts and they send them to the old addresses anyway. So we're going to try just verifying them in advance. And someday we'll have a nice automated, sophisticated system that will have all those changes, but we haven't created that yet. There was a hand up by someone I saw, but I don't see that up anymore. I might have answered the question or they may still have it. Speak now if you have a question. Otherwise, Ina, would anyone want to share a postcard? Oh, wait, no. Ina, would anyone want to share a postcard poem? Would you be up for that?
I would love to hear a poem. If someone has one they'd like to share, does somebody want to put their hand up and share? That would be really neat. Okay, I'm seeing a remarkable lack of hands up. Okay, Zach.
All right, why not just the first one from last year? Blowing my nose is like the tide washing out at Alki, revealing all the slime. Tomorrow, breath will come easier. A black poplar leaf plucked by the wind. Like the tree, every year, my name changes colors, is taken apart and put back again.
Anyone else want to read a poem?
I
Sally.
saw Sally had her hand
And
up.
I see Martha has her hand up too. Okay, Sally, then Martha.
Sure. Yeah. And I was just going to say, I tend to write shorter ones, but sometimes a line will get repeated, like the end of one poem might become the first line in a new one. But anyway, here's a poem that I wrote. Breakfast alone, sliced nectarines on oatmeal with a side of bird song.
Yay. That's a summer poem.
Martha, can we hear from you?
Okay, yeah, I tend to get dense in mine, but here's one from last year. The layers of the earth resemble the strata of the mind. Fossils hidden in crumbly dirt shapeshift into nuggets of crystallized wisdom that emerge from memory and half-forgotten experiences.
All right. Thanks, Martha.
Oops.
Beautiful.
Anyone else want to share? Judy.
So several years ago, I decided for no particular reason to write poems on a theme. It just sort of started by accident. And I ended up writing a month's worth of poems about a scarecrow. And it's about a relationship between a girl and a scarecrow. And with deep apologies, I grew up in Los Angeles and my scarecrow knowledge is somewhat limited, but the collection of scarecrow poems turned into a chapbook. And so I'm going to read you one of the scarecrow poems out of the chapbook. And it started its life as a postcard poem. This is Beach. The scarecrow has never been swimming. Can you imagine me in a Speedo, he says? I rarely imagine anyone in a Speedo, but in the sunburned tumble of humanity on the wide strand of Dorset or Dubrovnik, his slender straw gold limbs would hardly be remarkable. Yet I yearn for the sea, he tells me, for the drench, the float, the scent of sun and salt in its way like buttered corn on a hot day, but so far from this field, from the crows in their black costumes, the sparrows, the bugling rattle of the cranes.
Fantastic. Thanks, Judy. That's great. Can you show the book again real quick? Look at that.
It's called The Word for Standing Alone in a Field.
Fantastic. I love those stories, how it started as, see, that's the idea. Get yourself writing, free the editor's mind, see what happens, surprise yourself. And I love to see that these projects that blossom out of the fest. That is the highest praise that anyone could give any creative project that something like that came out of it. Beautiful. And the scarecrow, he's so emotionally unavailable, isn't he, Judy? I mean, there are probably both bows that go into that.
But not entirely. Surprisingly, he has some emotional depth, and the connection is it's quite tender.
If there are any other burning questions here before we let folks go, and of course, your team captain will be available, and you'll know who that is by the 4th of July, who you can ask questions to, and if you need any advice, they're there for you. And so if there's not any other burning questions, I think we should call this a day. This Poetry Postcard Fest to me is such a beautiful thing. I think it was Judy Jensen who said that postcard season was like a season for her, like springtime or like the holidays. And that's certainly how it's become for me. It's become an opportunity to, like Sam Hamill, have a bodhisattva vow to poetry, at least during this 56 days. And you'd be surprised what happens in your life. And you'd be surprised how easy it is to prioritize the act of writing poems, especially when you get the energy of somebody's beautiful poem and beautiful card. And you take that energy and may not go directly to them, it may go to someone else, but they're all in the village, as my friend Eze used to say. So this fest continues to unfold its complexities and its beauty year after year, card after card, and it's really the signature project now of the Cascadia Poetics Lab, as far as I'm concerned. So I'm very grateful that you're all postcard poets, and Judy wants to chime in here as well. So Judy?
I just have one final question. If you could remind us the last day to sign up in case people want to recruit their friends to participate.
I would tell them get in before the 4th of July. That's the best advice. Now, if we have 17 full groups and half of an 18th group, we'll probably leave it open for a little while so that people can join and then send that 18th out in parts, or tell them to wait if we're getting a regular flow of new registrants. But we don't want to have a hard and fast date just yet, because we want to see how people are responding. But the idea is that people should have at least 56 days to to conduct, to write 31 original poems on postcards to folks. So getting it by the 4th of July would be best.
Paul, someone also just asked what the cost is this year.
The cost of the early bird was 15, and then it goes up for the last month of the fest. So it's 22. Some folks choose to cover the transaction fee, and that's helpful too. Of course, your people are welcome to make a donation over and above that. So it's $22, and we've taken a couple of checks for people who've had a problem getting the registration going online and or don't like to send money online, and I can understand that fear, having been hacked a couple of times. So we do that as well. You can go to the Poetry Postcard Fest website and go to the contact info and see our address. And yeah, $22 now. If you get in early, then it's cheaper, and that's pretty reasonable, I think.
Okay, folks, thanks everyone. I'm gonna take off. If you have questions, my email address is out there. See y'all later. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Ina. Thanks to the committee, Judy and Sally and Zach and Margaret, and thank you all for being part of this community. I'm very grateful that it exists. I love the floating fish, Beth. I don't know what that is, but that's pretty cool. That's a cool effect. And I'll just hang on the line for a little bit, and in case anyone wants to hang out, but thanks for being part of this community.